Reddit, what's the funniest time you followed the rules exactly just to prove a point? I've never been the kind of guy to make waves. My name's Dave, and I'm a back-end engineer at a mid-sized tech firm where casual dress code really means we stopped trying after 2018. Jeans, hoodies, even the occasional Pikachu onesie on casual Fridays, nobody cared. Except Josh. My manager. Josh was the kind of guy who thinks every meeting needs a PowerPoint and every sentence needs per my last email. He didn't like me much. Not because I was bad at my job, my code was clean, my commits prompt, but because I wasn't shiny enough. He kept making vague comments about professional presentation and looking like you want to be taken seriously. Last Monday, he pulled me aside and said, "Hey Dave, maybe start dressing a little better, yeah?" I looked down at my flannel shirt, chinos, and loafers. "Is there a dress code I'm not aware of?" "Just elevate a little," he said, and walked off like he'd just dropped a TED Talk. So I checked with HR. The dress code said, business casual. Closed-toed shoes. No offensive graphics. Jeans permitted on Fridays. They told me I was fully in compliance. That's when I decided, fine. I'll dress better. Out of spite. Tuesday morning, I arrived in a full three-piece suit. Navy blue, tailored, with a pocket square and cufflinks. Hair slicked back. I looked like I was either running for office or about to shut down a hedge fund. People stared. My coworkers laughed, but when asked, I simply said, "Josh told me to dress better." Wednesday, I escalated. Charcoal gray suit. Tie clip. Polished Oxfords. I carried a leather briefcase containing only granola bars and Spite. By Thursday, I had a new nickname, Wall Street. People were taking selfies with me. Even the CEO raised an eyebrow in the elevator and asked if I was headed to court. Just following managerial advice, I said with a smile. Friday was the kicker, a white tuxedo. Bow tie. Patent leather shoes. I brought a wine glass to sip my LaCroix. That afternoon, the CEO called me into his office. I figured I was getting fired, or at least strongly urged to stop cosplaying as the Monopoly man. Instead, he said, "You report to me now. Josh is being reassigned. I've reviewed the situation, thanks for your creative way of bringing attention to it." Turns out HR had gotten multiple complaints, not about me, but about Josh's vague, passive-aggressive management style. My fashion protest was just the final push. Now I wear what I want again. Today, I'm back in my trusty flannel. But I still keep that tuxedo in my closet, just in case Josh ever gets promoted again. When I moved to Australia last year, everything was new: country, job, apartment, even my phone number. I figured I'd get a few wrong number texts at first, maybe a telemarketer or two. What I didn't expect was a relentless barrage of calls from confused, impatient men demanding to know why I hadn't shown up at a construction site. At first, I thought it was a prank. "Oi, mate, you bringing the sealant or not? We're on a clock here." "I think you've got the wrong number," I said politely. "Don't mess me around, Jared. We've got 20 blokes waiting." "I am not Jared." I don't know who Jared is. But apparently Jared used to have my number, and Jared was very bad at updating his contacts. For weeks, it continued. Different tradesmen, same confusion. Every time I explained I wasn't Jared, the reactions ranged from mild annoyance to full-on suspicion, like I was doing this as some kind of elaborate practical joke. I tried to laugh it off at first, but it got old fast. I'd be in meetings, at the grocery store, even on the toilet, and my phone would buzz with someone yelling, "Where's the bloody tiling?" I finally decided to take action. I did some digging, starting with Google. After a few searches and a dive into a couple of sketchy trade forums, I figured out who Jared was, a subcontractor listed on several small builder directories. I found his new number on one of the sites and gave him a call. "Hey Jared," I said, doing my best to sound friendly. "Listen, I've got your old number and I'm getting a lot of your calls, builders, clients, deliveries. It's been messing with my work. Would you mind updating your info?" He laughed, then said, "Not my problem, mate. Should have got a better number." Click. That was it. No apology, no decency, not even a cheers. Just full-on dismissive jerk behavior. Something in me snapped. I don't know what it was, maybe the fourth call that week at 6:30 a.m. asking for scaffolding, but I decided, fine. You want to be a tool? I'll use the wrong number as a weapon. About 2 weeks later, the call came. "Got a truck of sand for you," the guy said. "Need to know where to drop it." "Jared?" I paused. My heart did a little excited flip. Yes, I said. Drop it right in the driveway. Don't worry if there's a car there, just dump it right on top. We need to level that area anyway. The driver hesitated. You sure? Oh, absolutely, mate. I'm sure. And that's where the fun began. I didn't hear anything for a few hours after I gave the green light to the sand delivery guy. Part of me thought maybe he didn't go through with it, maybe he got cold feet. But later that afternoon I got a text from an unknown number. You absolute psycho. You told him to dump it on my car. I couldn't help it. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone in the sink. So, it had happened. I didn't respond. Just sat there in my kitchen, grinning, picturing Jared the phone number menace stepping out of his house and seeing an entire truckload of landscaping sand buried over his driveway and, more importantly, over his bright red Holden Ute. A beautiful, heavy, immovable reminder that being a jerk has consequences. That evening, I got a call from the sand delivery driver. Hey mate, just confirming that was the right spot, yeah? I don't know what happened, but the bloke went absolutely mental. Started yelling at me, said I ruined his car. I cleared my throat and said, that's unfortunate. But I told you to drop it right in the driveway. That's what Jared said. The guy sighed. Yeah, I got the paperwork. Just checking. Good luck with the project. Click. I figured that'd be the end of it, but oh no. Jared wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a storm of texts, rage-filled paragraphs, voice messages full of creative Australian insults, and one very shaky selfie of him next to his sand-buried car like he was documenting a war crime. I ignored every single one. Then he tried calling. Multiple times. When I finally picked up, I kept it brief. Listen, Jared. You told me to sort out my own *T, remember? Mate, you're gonna pay for the *****ing damages, he screeched. I don't think so, I replied calmly. You gave up your number. You refused to fix it. You told me it wasn't your problem. This is illegal, man. Only if I claim to be you, I said. I just got tired of the calls and thought you'd enjoy a taste of your own medicine. Sand-flavored. He hung up, but not before launching into a speech about lawyers, lawsuits, and going public. Nothing ever came of it. I'm guessing he realized how ridiculous the story sounded. Hi, I'm suing a guy because I refused to update my contact info and then someone dumped sand on my car because he got tired of being mistaken for me. As for me, I changed my number shortly after. Not because of Jared, just because I got a new work phone. I almost missed the chaos, but not really. Now every time I pass a construction site or see a mound of sand, I smile. Somewhere out there, a guy named Jared is still explaining to insurance how he managed to get his own driveway turned into a miniature desert. And me? I sleep great at night. Revenge is best served cold. Or in this case, in metric tons. My name's Eric, and I work for a mid-sized tech company where the motto might as well be confuse, then delegate. Our team had a manager named Josh, an ex-middle manager from a larger corporation who had mastered one skill, speaking in corporate riddles. Josh had a gift for giving feedback that meant absolutely nothing. Things like, this report needs more synergy, or my personal favorite, just do better. If you asked him to clarify, he'd respond with, I don't want to micromanage. Which was hilarious because micromanaging was literally his entire personality. After months of vague criticisms and impossible-to-follow expectations, the final straw came when Josh implemented a new rule: all projects should be done the Josh way. When I asked, what exactly is the Josh way, he looked at me, dead serious, and said, you'll know it when you see it. So I decided to obey. Strictly. Stubbornly. Out of spite. First, I stopped improvising solutions. If a task didn't come with detailed instructions, I waited for them. When clients complained, I simply said, I'm waiting on Josh for direction. I followed formatting suggestions to the letter even when they made the deliverables borderline unreadable. When asked why, I said, Josh said so. I refused to use the updated template for weekly reports because Josh once, offhandedly, said he preferred the old one. I marked that as policy. I once spent an entire afternoon copying and pasting data into a spreadsheet manually because Josh said he didn't trust automation. Was it inefficient? Absolutely. But hey, Josh said so. The breaking point was during a big presentation. Josh had once mentioned in a meeting that less is more and real professionals don't rely on slides. So I showed up with 0 slides. Just a whiteboard and a marker. People were confused. Upper management was silent. I wrote the Josh way across the whiteboard and started talking. Afterward, I was called into HR. I thought I was done. But the HR rep said, "You're not in trouble. Actually, we've had a number of concerns about Josh. Apparently, my behavior had forced them to review his leadership style. Other employees had started doing what I did. The result? Missed deadlines, angry clients, and confusion across teams. Josh was quietly reassigned to a role where he could work independently. I went back to doing things the way I always had, efficiently, clearly, and with a touch of sarcasm. Now, when someone in the office makes a terrible decision and gets called out for it, we just shrug and say, 'Hey, Josh said so.' It's become office code for, 'Don't blame me, I was being petty on purpose.'" My grandpa is 74, retired, and built entirely out of stubbornness and peppermint candies. He recently moved to one of those quiet, over 55 communities near a nature reserve. It was supposed to be peaceful. It wasn't. His next-door neighbor, Stan, was one of those guys who peaked in high school and never got the memo. The first time Grandpa tried to introduce himself, Stan cut him off with, "I've lived here 10 years. Don't meddle in what's not your business." Grandpa smiled, nodded, and didn't say a word. But I know that smile. That's the smile of a man who's about to bring the hammer of bureaucratic hell. See, Grandpa used to work for the National Park Service. Knew all the regulations. Could spot a property line infraction like a hawk spotting a mouse. Which is exactly what happened. He noticed that Stan's backyard extended a suspicious 2.5 meters beyond the official fence line, straight into the protected county reserve. And the guy had even laid down pavers and parked his classic red sports car there. Grandpa gave him a friendly warning. Stan told him to buzz off. So Grandpa did right into the county zoning office. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't embellish. He just filed a complaint. Quietly. Formally. Attached some photos. Then waited. Months passed. Then summer rolled around and most of the residents left for vacation. That's when the county officials showed up with maps, surveyors, and a very serious-looking clipboard guy. They measured. They took photos. They asked questions. And then they brought trucks. Turns out Stan had been creeping into the reserve for years. Every time he did yard work, he moved the fence just a little further. This time, he got caught. The county fined him. Big time. Then they forced him to remove every paver and replant native grass. He also lost his right to store vehicles near the property line. But the cherry on top? They made him dig a drainage trench right where he used to park his beloved red car. Stan tried to plead ignorance. Grandpa just nodded and said, "That's why I told you not to meddle in what's not your business." Now whenever we visit Grandpa and look out at that freshly replanted grass, we see Stan standing beside his shrunken yard, watering it with the dead eyes of a man who picked a fight with a retiree and lost. The best part? Grandpa never raised his voice, never argued, never gloated. He just obeyed the law and let the law handle the spite. I work from home as a UX designer for a mid-sized tech company. Remote life suits me, headphones on, zero commutes, occasional cat on keyboard. All was good until we hired a new manager, Paul. Paul was obsessed with meetings. "Let's hop on a quick Zoom" became his answer to literally everything. Morning stand-ups, afternoon check-ins, mid-morning coffee chats, and even end-of-day debriefs. Sometimes we had meetings about meetings. Productivity plummeted. I suggested condensing them. Paul smiled and said, "You're just not maximizing FaceTime." So I decided to maximize FaceTime, just not in the way he expected. I started showing up to every meeting with a different themed background. Not just basic ones, full cinematic productions. For a project kickoff, I appeared in front of a burning battlefield from Braveheart, face painted blue. For our Monday sync, I wore a suit jacket but sat in front of a beach, sipping a drink from a coconut. Then I escalated. I made a fake video loop of myself nodding and occasionally typing. I used that for Paul's optional but expected Friday night meetings. He didn't notice. Not even once. My coworkers caught on and started doing it too. One guy tuned in from the Millennium Falcon. Another hosted a call while floating in space, complete with a spinning Earth behind him. The kicker? We were still getting our work done. Faster even. since we'd pre-discussed everything before the actual meetings. Eventually, upper management noticed the absurd backgrounds and started asking questions. When HR sat Paul down, they realized he'd been scheduling over 40 hours of meetings a week for a team of 7. They restructured the whole communication protocol. Paul now leads async initiatives, aka sends Slack updates and leaves us alone. Me? I still have a background of a calm Zen garden. Every now and then, someone asks if I'll bring back pirate ship Eric. I say only if there's mutiny. Again. It started with fish. I brought a leftover salmon fillet for lunch, perfectly grilled, lightly seasoned, in a Tupperware container that even my mom would have approved of. I microwaved it in the office break room for exactly 1 minute. And that's when the horror began. First, Cheryl from HR walked in and made a face like I'd lit a garbage fire. Then Derek from sales poked his head in and announced someone nuked a fish. "You trying to kill us, bro?" I smiled politely. "It's lunch." Later that day, we got a mass email from HR. Subject line, "Let's be considerate." Inside, a passive-aggressive novel about strong-smelling foods and community sensitivity. The unspoken villain? Me and my poor, now vilified salmon. So I obeyed the new rule. Out of spite. The next day, I brought a George Foreman grill from home. Set it up on the corner of the break room table. I plugged it in, slapped on 2 chicken breasts, and let the delicious aroma of sizzling spite waft through the office. Cheryl walked in mid-sizzle. Her eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Can't use the microwave," I said cheerfully. "So I'm grilling." The following week, I alternated between a mini crock pot for chili, a portable camping stove for soup, and once, just to make a point, a hot plate to toast a single slice of bread, slowly, while whistling. Every time someone complained, I smiled. "No strong smells from the microwave, right?" "This isn't the microwave." Management tried to clarify the rule. "No cooking devices in the office." So I brought cold foods, but weird ones. Cold garlic noodles. Cold hard-boiled eggs with blue cheese. Cold sardines. I ate them with great enthusiasm. At one point, someone asked if I was on a refrigerated diet. "Nope," I said. "Just trying to be considerate." Eventually, HR relented. They updated the policy to please use the microwave responsibly. Ventilate after use. Seal strong-smelling foods. That same day, I brought salmon again. But this time I had a cover, a fan, and a little bottle of air freshener. I even printed out a sign that read, "Fish-friendly zone, enter at your own risk." And people? They laughed. I became the office legend. Someone even drew a cartoon of me as a Viking microwaving a trout with the caption, "Microwave madness, fear the fillet." The moral? Don't start a passive-aggressive war with someone who owns camping equipment and has nothing to lose during lunch. My name's Mark, and I used to be the office go-to guy. You needed something done last minute? Call Mark. Clients freaking out? Mark's on it. System crashed at 11 p.m.? Don't worry, Mark's already fixing it from home. I didn't mind. I took pride in being reliable. That was until one day my boss, let's call him Brian, pulled me into his glass-walled corner of micromanagement. "Mark," he said, folding his hands like a disappointed guidance counselor, "you've been too emotionally invested in your work lately. Let's focus on just doing what's asked. No context. No examples. Just a vague critique after I'd worked 2 weekends in a row to save a failing client project." So I nodded, smiled, walked back to my desk, and stopped caring. Not in a malicious, burn-it-all-down kind of way. Just obedience. Pure, cold, policy-perfect compliance. If it wasn't explicitly written in my task list, I didn't do it. Requests without deadlines? Ignored. Emails asking for a quick favor? Referred to the ticket system. Client issues that would normally send me into action? I forwarded them to the appropriate channel and closed the tab. No jokes. No Slack emojis. Just the minimal viable effort. At first, nobody noticed. Then deadlines started slipping. My team lead messaged me in a panic about a report that was missing formatting. "It wasn't in the requirements," I replied, "but happy to add it on the next sprint." People started asking, "Is everything okay?" I just nodded and said, "Doing what's asked." Brian tried to rally the team one Friday with one of his pep talks. "We're a family, folks. Let's go above and beyond." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Above and beyond hasn't been in my job description since last quarter." That Monday, 2 other team members quietly joined me in the silent obedience. The office started feeling haunted. Stuff was getting done, but only technically. No creative solutions. No problem solving. Just clocked-in compliance. The final nail came when a client presentation tanked because Brian forgot to include a key demo component that I would have usually built in my spare time. Afterward, he stormed into my cubicle and asked, "Why didn't you catch that?" I shrugged. Wasn't my responsibility. Just doing what I'm asked. He stared at me like I'd grown horns. That week, HR called a meeting with our department. They wanted feedback on morale, on workflow, on why productivity was technically fine but satisfaction was plummeting. I said it straight, when initiative is punished and compliance is praised, don't expect creativity. Brian got reassigned to internal workflow analysis. Rumor is it's the corporate equivalent of exile. Our new manager? A former developer who actually understands what we do and trusts us to do it. Now, I work the same hours. I do what's needed. But when I go above and beyond now, it's because I want to, not because someone guilted me into it. Turns out, the quietest revolutions start with someone who simply stops trying. You ever read something so specific and dumb that you feel the urge to test it? That's how I ended up wearing a pastel green leisure suit with bell-bottoms to an all-hands meeting. It started with a petty office email. HR, in its infinite wisdom, decided to reiterate the dress code after someone apparently wore a hoodie with a cartoon hot dog saying something inappropriate. Their message read, "All employees must follow the official dress code. Shirts with collars, slacks or dress pants, closed-toed shoes, no offensive graphics. Casual Fridays do not waive these guidelines." Now, I was already following that code. Polo shirts, khakis, nothing offensive. But I guess they wanted a crackdown. So I obeyed out of spite. Day 1, I showed up in a plaid polyester suit from the 1970s that I bought from a thrift store ironically and had kept for reasons even I couldn't explain. Collared shirt? Check. Slacks? Check. Closed-toed shoes? Oh yeah, two-toned wingtips. I looked like I was about to sell vacuum cleaners door-to-door or join a barbershop quartet. My coworkers burst out laughing. One guy choked on his bagel. HR didn't say a word. So I kept going. Day 2, powder blue tuxedo with ruffles. Day 3, white Miami Vice blazer over a neon pink polo paired with lavender chinos. Every outfit was technically dress code compliant and completely ridiculous. By the end of the week, people started showing up in themed outfits in solidarity. My buddy wore a cowboy tie and suspenders. One guy showed up in a British judge's robe with a collar, of course. That Friday, our CEO walked by my desk, stopped, and asked, "Is this some kind of protest?" I looked down at my crushed velvet blazer and gold-trimmed slacks. Just following the dress code. She blinked, then smirked. The next week, HR issued a revised dress code. Business attire should align with contemporary professional standards. Please avoid outdated, theatrical, or novelty outfits. I complied. Went back to polos and khakis. But on the wall of my cubicle now hangs a framed copy of that old dress code email with a sticky note that says, "Define contemporary." Because if they're going to play the rulebook game, I'll always be ready. My closet still has the leisure suit. Just in case. It started with an email, passive-aggressive, poorly formatted, and clearly aimed at me. Subject, paper usage alert. Body, our department's paper consumption has been unusually high. Please be mindful of printing and only do so when absolutely necessary. Remember, every sheet counts. I knew exactly what this was about. I printed 2 training manuals last week, both approved by my manager, and now the finance guy was clutching his pearls over 200 sheets of company paper. So I decided to obey. With vigor. And just a little spite. The next day, I needed to print a report. Instead of a normal 12-point font, I shrunk it to 6-point. Margins? Reduced to 0.2 inches. I even switched the font to Arial Narrow. The result looked like a crossword puzzle mated with a legal contract. But it fit on 3 pages instead of 10. My boss raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Next, I went double-sided. Always. Even for 1-page memos. I just print them on the back of old documents I'd scavenged from the recycling bin. One time, I gave a copy of a sales pitch to a client on the back of an old birthday announcement for Debbie in HR. It was a hit. But I wasn't done. I began printing in grayscale only, citing toner conservation. I adjusted the printer defaults so it printed draft mode by default, making every document look like it had been photocopied through fog. I created a document formatting guide and sent it to the whole team. Mark's Guide to Responsible Printing, Size, Style, Spite. It included helpful tips like use line breaks instead of paragraphs and avoid diagrams, they take up space and joy. Then came the piece de resistance. I created a report using black-on-black text. You could only read it by highlighting the PDF on screen, but if you printed it, boom, invisible ink. When someone asked, "Mark, I can't read this," I'd smile and say, "Trying to save paper." A week later, the finance guy who sent the original email walked by and asked if everything was okay with the printer. "Oh yeah," I said. "Just being mindful. Every sheet counts, right?" He looked at the stack of microfont, double-sided, grayscale gibberish on my desk and walked away without another word. The following Monday, a new email arrived. Subject: Paper usage alert. Body: we appreciate everyone's efforts. Please use your best judgment moving forward. I printed that email on a single 2-inch square. Just for me. Framed it too. Because nothing says lesson learned like obeying the rules so hard they break themselves. I work in field operations for a logistics company. I'd been managing a US-Canada hybrid region with my colleague Jim for years. We had a solid system, tons of autonomy, and happy clients. But then came Bob, the new CEO. Bob was the kind of leader who read one business book and thought he invented efficiency. He decided our department was too bloated and split it. Jim would handle Canada and a fresh perspective would handle the US. Enter Karen. 23. MBA. 0 field experience. Wore stilettos to warehouse inspections and talked like a TED Talk on 2x speed. Bob said she'd be shadowing us to absorb tribal knowledge. Instead, she interrupted every meeting with disruptive ideas and told clients they were doing things wrong. She once asked a forklift operator why he couldn't just use a drone instead. Jim and I exchanged looks daily. But we said nothing. We obeyed. Out of spite. We gave Karen everything she asked for. The full training binder. Access to our client records. The reports. The spreadsheets. We answered her questions in exhausting detail and followed every instruction to the letter even when it made no sense. She said to CC her on every communication, so we did. Even calendar invites for coffee breaks. She wanted data-first reporting? We sent graphs for warehouse humidity levels. When she asked for a visual representation of field relationships, Jim drew a stick figure map with smiley faces and arrows and submitted it. She approved it. Meanwhile, our biggest clients, who relied on us for boots-on-the-ground decisions, started getting confused. Delays piled up. Karen once told a longtime customer we no longer need in-person check-ins. Zoom is the future. They called me in a panic. I said, I'm no longer assigned to your region. After 6 weeks, Bob summoned me and Jim to New York. We thought we were getting fired. Instead, he looked exhausted. Karen's overwhelmed. She says you two are undermining her. I smiled. We've done exactly what she's asked. No more, no less. Bob sighed. And yet the region's falling apart. Well, Jim said, sipping his coffee, that's the new direction, right? 2 weeks later, Karen was reassigned to strategic visioning. We never saw her again. Jim and I got our region back quietly with no fanfare. Now, when someone in the office proposes a bizarre idea with a straight face, we nod and say, that's a real Karen strategy. And then we do what's asked. Just exactly what's asked. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories of gloriously petty obedience, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. Got your own, a bait out of spite, moment? Drop it in the comments, we'd love to hear it.